Hey everyone, it's Spencer here with nichepursuits.com, and I'm excited to introduce you to Mark Webster and Gael Breton from authorityhacker.com. If you've been in the affiliate marketing and niche website or authority website space for any period of time, you've certainly heard of these guys over at authorityhacker.com. They do a lot of great work. They've got their blog there, they even have a YouTube channel and their podcast, and they're producing a lot of high quality content that teaches people how to build websites that rank in Google and how they can monetize that with affiliate marketing. And so we dive into that subject pretty deep. We specifically talk about their Shotgun Skyscraper technique for link building. We talk about content clusters. And then we go on to talk about the future of SEO. So we cover a wide range of subjects. But overall, I think there's a lot of actionable tips that you can take and you can apply to your specific website. If you want to learn more from Mark and Gael, they actually have a premium training course called Authority Hacker Pro. And you can go to nichepursuits.com/Authority Hacker Pro if you want to take advantage of that. Again, it's nichepursuits.com/Authority Hacker Pro. But overall, whether or not you take advantage of that, I hope that you enjoy the interview with Mark and Gael. Hey, Mark, Gael, welcome to the Niche Pursuits podcast.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Yep.
I like how Mark was expecting that I would cut him already, so he just he waited a second before.
It always happens.
Hey, nice
I can never get a word in.
Well, we're going to have to see how this works. I'm not used to having, two guests on the podcast, so this is a little bit new for me. So I'm sure we'll make it work, right?
How it normally works is, you and I can have a conversation, Spencer, and Gael will just interrupt regardless whenever he wants. So,
Yeah, I watched the debate last night, so I picked some cues,
We're primed for lots of interruptions, after that debate. Oh boy, let's not talk about politics. Let's chat niche sites and business, of course. But first, Mark, I understand you were married not too long ago. What, maybe a year ago? How's married life?
Yeah, 1 year and 3 months. It's very, very different to my old single life. I'll say that. I have a dog now as well.
Oh wow!
So his name's Steve, and he features on our podcast sometimes as well, just to get more likes. So.
Right. So it's good. So it's no longer just your schedule, right? You got to make your spouse happy.
Unfortunately, yes.
Married life's good. I've been married for, believe it or not, and this will age me a little bit, I've been married, it'll be 18 years in December. Yeah.
How old are you, Spencer?
Nobody's asked me that.
Because I honestly,
I like how we're going to turn these to our podcast now.
I can't picture it. You seem very, very, very old in the way you describe that, 18 years, but you look very young. So,
well, that's why I'm growing the beard, is to help age me a little bit. No, believe it or not, my birthday is in October. So if anybody wants to send me anything mid-October here, I will be turning 43 years old, believe it or not. So I'm an old man at this point, but I try to stay young as much as possible. So
I think 43, you still you're fine, man. You're fine. It's like, you're still running a lot as well. So
I am. I'm staying in shape. Yep. So lots of living left to do. So, but
we're losing viewers now. Let's talk about websites.
That's right. So, Gael, we actually had you on the podcast. I just checked back in 2014. Can you believe it's been 6 years since then?
Yeah, it's like, it feels like Authority Hacker is not that old, but now I look at it and I'm like, oh shit, because that was just when we started Authority Hacker, right?
Yeah.
I think I wrote a blog post and Perrin emailed me, and then you guys invited me and we had a discussion. Also, 3 people actually on the podcast, funnily enough. We're still around, I guess, and you're still around. That we just feel run in parallel courses, but it's I think it's been fun. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. I mean, you guys, from the very beginning, you've always put out really quality content and helping people out learn SEO. And, growing authority sites, and but a lot has happened in the last 6 years. So I want to dive into not so much what you are doing with authorityhacker.com, but a little bit more like your own portfolio. So catch people up with, what is your portfolio of sites looking like right now? What are you guys working on?
Yeah. So the truth is, no, you know what? You go ahead. You
go for it, Gael. Go for it, Gael. I can never interrupt you.
The thing is, like, it's like there's been kind of like ups and downs, and you know that as well, right? There's like times when you're like doing a lot of projects at once, and you're like, you know what, I need to cut down on stuff, and I need to go back on stuff, etc. Kind of what happened during these 6 years, basically. So we, I think when we started Authority Hacker, we were running like 3 sites or something, like not too many, but like some big ones, and we did that for about, like, honestly, 3-4 years. Like for 3-4 years, it didn't really change that much. And then we started another site. We started the site where we made the case study that we sold 2 years ago. We made that we sold. We couldn't say the number. We still can't say the number. We're still on the NDA on this, so we can't actually say mid-6 figures. That's what we're allowed to say from the vendor. Mm-hmm. But like that's a site we grew in 18 months. That we, it was in a software niche, and we. It was pure affiliate, high commissions. So it's like, that was also making a case because it wasn't Amazon. And it's like a lot of case studies were Amazon as well, which was interesting. And what it allowed us to highlight with that one is that how, when you do volume on private offers, you're able to negotiate with the vendors, develop a relationship, get higher commissions, to the point where we ended up with like pretty much triple the public commissions that there was for the program, because we were like one of the fastest growing sites in the niche, and we were doing good volume, and we were in good terms. Like Mark even went to meet people from these companies in face-to-face, etc. So we had that one. Then when we sold that site, we kind of like divested a bit. And the truth is that we had Authority Hacker Pro at the time, but it wasn't living to what we expected it to be. So we decided to divest a bit from the portfolio and kind of like be like, you know what, we want to, if we're charging people, we want to actually do something great.
Right.
So that's when we kind of like divested a bit and then kind of like focused more on Authority Hacker. And then for the past maybe 18 months, we kind of like been rebeefing up the building all the sites, etc., and all picking up sites that were left over. And now it's kind of like this growth phase. Actually, I'm actually relearning a lot of stuff, new stuff. Like, the thing I've never done before that I'm really looking quite deep into now is like picking up auction domains and things like that to like speed things up, etc. So I didn't really do that before because, this was more for PBN people, etc. But now like I kind of we've had high results with our sites, and I kind of wanted things to go a bit faster. We have cash available in hand, etc. So we're willing to like trade money for speed. And so I'm kind of like looking at these things right now, but we've also picked up some sites that we kind of like, we're low traffic, but we like 10x their traffic in the last 12 months, etc. So now we're working on like 3 main sites.
Okay.
And then we're actually looking for like to expand on more opportunities, basically. And like we're looking to like re-beef up the site portfolio type of thing now that Authority Hacker is more or less under control, and that we've achieved what we wanted to achieve with that. So that's essentially what happened in these 6 years, basically. It's, I tell you that really fast, but like, it's like these things can take months to like grow them, even like selling a site takes forever, etc. So it's like, so we're kind of like regrowing 3 main projects right now. We're focusing on, each of them has an editorial team. The link building team is for all the sites together. And we'll see, like we'll, as I said, I'm learning about picking up auction sites, maybe even like buying sites from people, etc. And hopefully we're going to expand that a little bit more.
All right, great summary. And I didn't ask a lot of those detailed questions because I know you had that really big case study with the software site, which is really interesting, by the way. I enjoyed reading that, partly because, like you said, it was in a niche that a lot of people aren't kind of writing about, at least in our small portion of the world, right? We're often hear about affiliate sites, display ads, and so it's interesting to hear that case study. And so congrats on being able to sell that for mid-6 figures, whatever the exact amount there was. But the 3, you mentioned that you've got 3 sites that you're working on now. Are those all sites that you started from scratch, or did you buy any existing sites?
No, they were started from scratch, all of them. Yeah, go ahead. You know what? You can talk, Mark.
all of the sites we've ever built, owned, ran have been ones that we've built from scratch. In the past, we found it quite difficult to find good sites which other people have built. It's never been quite the way we wanted it. And we haven't in the past been able to accept the fact that we need to maybe rebuild a bunch of stuff or just accept some of the imperfections the way they are. So that's why we've done up until that point. But now we realize that time is really our limiting factor here. So that's why we're changing our thinking a little bit on that.
Right. So you're saying going forward, you're looking at some of these auction domains, some more valuable domains.
Low earning sites as well are a good opportunity.
Okay.
Like, let's say a domain that's like 3 years old, but like doesn't earn that much, but is in an interesting niche. Maybe the owner didn't have the time, the resources, or the knowledge to do it properly. That's the kind of stuff we're looking to pick up to like kind of like, you know how the first year of a website is. It's never amazing. Yep. So if we can skip that year, like I won't complain,
Yeah, absolutely. So you haven't done any of that yet, but that is correct. Like but you're actively looking to buy either old domains or maybe a small existing site. Okay. Very cool. So I want to dive into that a little bit, but maybe let's talk about sort of the 3 existing sites that you have right now. Are they any of them, performing well at this point that, kind of are worth talking about specifically?
I think we have good growth, but the truth is Authority Hacker itself is doing really well. So like when we compare the earnings to Authority Hacker, I'm like, well, it's great, but like Authority Hacker at this point makes more money than them. It's like, I try to be honest with people about that, like not bullshitting, etc.
Well, you just sold your largest site, a couple of years ago, right? Like it's a wave. Like I do the same.
Yeah, and so like I would be honest about that. But the thing is, like we have some really interesting growth in some niches. The problem is that one site that I'm thinking about is actually quite seasonal, and we're kind of like starting to enter the declining phase of the seasonality. So now we're kind of like fighting against the trend to just at least maintain revenue. So it's like it's not as exciting to look at as when you're like in this right time of the year and your traffic is like we 10x the traffic in like 8 months or something. So doing really well. Definitely could live on that money basically. Yeah.
So what's the what's the overall strategy, just to give it a highlight of, you're building a new site for people listening in particular, right? Like what's the strategy? Is it just, there's a couple different schools of thought, right? Like just tons of content. I know you guys just interviewed John Dykstra. I had him on the show not too long ago where he just publishes tons of content targeting really low competition, doesn't even worry about links, right? And he mostly monetizes with just display ads, does a little social media marketing with Pinterest, right? And some of his sites are doing really, really well. So what's kind of, so what's sort of your overall strategy?
I mean, it's quite specific.
We used to take that approach, and we have built sites where we've done several thousand articles on the site. And to be honest, what we found happens is they just become a nightmare to work with. If you want to start adding in like affiliate tables to every single article and then writing mini descriptions for each of those products, there's so much on there to work with. And the benefit of doing that for each individual article that might make you an extra $2 a month seems not that, the incentive's not that strong. So what we found with the site we sold a couple of years ago is that we actually had far fewer pages on there. I think 120 or 130 or something. And even then, the top sort of 20% of those were making most of the money. So now our thinking is more like, well, can we just figure out what the ones that are going to be a hit before they're a hit are, and like take that approach?
So how do you do that? How do you find what's going to be a big producer, a big earner, a keyword that you target?
It's extensive competitor research. Really, that's where it starts. Like really, we tell people like you want to literally have a spreadsheet with every competing domain in there and their stats. And we map this out like extensively. Like so basically the spreadsheet essentially has like one tab with like all the competitors, and then you essentially try to have another tab with all the keywords, and then usually we have another tab with all the monetization methods. Essentially the goal is to kind of like link these three You use the competitors to find the keywords, and with the keywords, you try to link the monetization, and you're like, okay, well, this keyword I can link this offer, this keyword I can link this offer, etc. That's kind of like how you do it when you go off Amazon, because you usually juggle with a few offers, even though most affiliate sites, 80% of the money comes from like 1 to 3 offers, let's say. Mm-hmm. You try to link that, and so yeah, we have that giant map of keywords and competitors, and then let's say, like usually the metrics I give to people is like the keywords I try to find for a new site. We tell people at least 3 DR35 sites or less on page 1. And we want them to we use Ahrefs, and they give that traffic metric. And the reason I like that traffic metric is because essentially it includes all the long tail keyword that page might be ranking for in that number. So it's like you kind of like thinking in terms of topics rather than like the keyword.
Right.
And so I'm looking to get like 150 to 200 traffic to the pages that are top 5 maybe, and there's some low DR pages in there, and they don't have too many links to page. That's essentially the kind of keywords I pick when we start on a new site, and when like low authority, let's say below DR35, I would say that would count as low authority. And then after that, usually that DR35 is replaced by whatever my DR is. So it's like if my authority is like 50 or 60, then essentially I do that, and then I increase my traffic number as well, so that I don't aim for like too small numbers, and like I get a substantial increase on the traffic on the site. So usually these are the kind of like, it's kind of like when people invest and they have these rules, it's not like pure scientific, but it gives them a framework to like decide how to do things. That's essentially how it works. And usually for us, it's based on Ahrefs data and extensive competitor analysis. Like we look at competitor sites all the time. And for example, because we're competing in SERPs, I know most of the pages on your site, for example.
Sure.
I've seen
I may have looked at your site,
a year and a half ago. Yeah. So it's like, and that's fine. It's like, it's okay, like friendly competition, but like, we're very, very, very much based on like looking at what other people do. And essentially the goal is let them spend the money and try to figure out what's working for them, so that you don't have to waste your time and money on stuff that has less chances of working,
I would also add, we've started looking a lot more at the products we're going to be promoting if it's an affiliate site. So what is the price point? What's the commission? Some programs have like really good deals where they kind of front load the commission and they pay you 100% or even more than 100% of the value of the first sale. So like those are very, very attractive as an affiliate site versus the 0.3% or whatever you're getting, 3% you're getting on Amazon these days.
Right.
So that's made a big difference in like helping us to find higher paying niches, I think.
Yeah, I think I make the argument in the case study of the site we sold. I basically say the payout of affiliate offers increases faster than SEO difficulty. So if you're quite good at SEO, usually you're better off going for, you don't really care about competition. You'll find a way to get traffic, even if it's for very long tail keywords. But like, I wouldn't mind going for a 40 searches per month keyword if it's for a $400 credit card offer, for example. And I probably make more money than like 1,000 searches per month Amazon keyword still. And so like there's that kind of function as we get more advanced where you're willing to trade traffic for payouts, because it increases like exponentially higher than the difficulty of SEO. It might be twice higher, but you get paid 10 times more,
Right. So to kind of summarize, it's a lot of competitor analysis. You're looking at what are your competitors doing in the SERPs, but you're trying to find those keywords that A, have traffic, B, are going to make you the most money, but C, still have some weaknesses in the SERPs, perhaps, right? Like
you're pretty much there's a compromise, Right. And then after that, when you come with that list of keywords, then you try to build a site structure that makes sense as well. I'm sure you've seen that with your sites, but like, let's say you have like 5 to 10 pages on a subtopic, you tend to do better as a website for these pages than you do with a single page on that topic. And if you were writing about 10 random different topics. So we tend to try to group these things. And it's kind of interesting when I create a new site as well, because we're sometimes willing to write for keywords where we have no chance of ranking, so that we build that like complete hub. It's kind of like this family game, where you just trade the cards, etc., and you try to get the family. It's kind of the same. You're trying to like essentially build the whole family, because all together it's much more powerful. And if the keyword is difficult, what this usually means is that the top ranking pages have a lot of links. And so what we do is we flip the script. We use that page to build links to the hub rather than that page to actually rank. And so we reach out to the people that link out to the competitors, and we're like, well, look, we made a better, more updated version. Can you link to us? That's like essentially the Shotgun Skyscraper we teach to people. And so we flip the script. We write about low competition and high competition keyword in the same hub. The low competition keywords are here to make money. The high competition keywords are here to get links. Internal linking. I mean, you know about internal linking, I'm sure.
Yeah, a little bit.
And then the hub works really well because you get relevant links to a relevant piece of content that internal links to a monetized piece of content that ends up ranking because it was low competition, you know?
Yeah. So I do want to talk a little bit about sort of content hubs or content clusters and link building. So can you maybe give us a concrete example, either from Authority Hacker or just, make up an example, right? Of like, how would you use a content cluster? What might be that article or that keyword that you're trying to get, external links pointing to, right? Like to give
I can
people
give you
an
one
idea.
on Authority Hacker that everyone can go check out actually. So actually it's funny because there's a YouTube video coming out where I talk about this. But if you check, we have an article on best keyword research, keyword tools, right? And at the time when we wrote about this, it was like a semi-commutative query, but not too crazy. Now you Google that query and it's like Ahrefs and
it's insane.
and it's like you need to be DR90 to essentially compete for that keyword. You have no chance. The good thing is we actually, because we made a pre-original case study initially, that page has, I think, 85 linking domains or something. Okay. And so I have high authority on that page, but I have no chance to rank for that keyword. And so what we've done here is, well, we can't rank for that query, but we could rank for Ahrefs versus SEMrush. We could rank for SpyFu versus whatever, etc. So what you do is you create these subpages, you link from that page that has the authority, and you try to help these pages rank. And hopefully through long-tail traffic, you actually make your authority worse. It's a great way to repurpose stuff that became too competitive for you as well. And essentially you transform that one page that used to be great at the time to a hub that ranks smaller pages.
Yeah, that's a great example. Do you still try to get new links to that, best keyword research tools article? Like,
there's kind of two approaches to that, right? Yeah. There's like, well, you just let it be and you're like whatever. Or you can be like, so the other approach you can take is like, how content refresh is really important these days. And like people just refresh their content. You could play the long-term game. You can be like, well, maybe it's an article I'm going to be updating every year and I'm going to be promoting it every year. And hopefully in 2-3 years, I'll be able to compete for that very, very competitive query because I've been quite diligent on my update, and hopefully some competitors have not done that. So right now we're not doing that, but like that's essentially the two approaches you can be. You can either just like passively recycle your link equity and not really build links, or also there's an opportunity where I'm like, actually for these VS keywords, I'm number 4 or 5. I want to rank them up. And maybe I'm just going to do a guest posting campaign to that page and I kill 2 birds in one stone. Maybe I can get to rank a little bit better for the really, really difficult query and I get to push the sub pages. So it's like I can't tell you what we're going to do because it kind of changes depending on the circumstances and how you're doing, etc. But like, there's many ways to manage that, basically.
Yeah. Any additional thoughts on that, Mark, that you might want to add to sort of the content clusters, and how it interacts with where you're link building?
No, not really. I mean,
it's usually my thing, that's why.
Gotcha.
What we found though, like consistently over the last few years, is that like in the past we had this famous, like semi-famous health website, which we did loads of case studies and stuff on.
Right.
But it was like so broad that it was very rare that like any one cluster would do very well. It was just like a bunch of random pages would suddenly do well here or there. More recently, what we've moved over towards is like really going hyper focused on one category, one subcategory. So even if we brand the site very broad, we'll just build out one category completely first.
Right.
And that seems to work really, really well. I don't know if it's like a massive relevancy signal or just all of the links are like we're acquiring are related to that. So the relevancy of the links are counting or what it is. But I mean, it's anecdotal, but it's working really well for us.
Yeah. To give you an idea, the site we sold for $500,000 only had 1 out of 5 categories developed. The way the site was built is that there was one category with 100+ pages, and every other category was a single page. It was just here to like match the branding of the site.
Just to make it kind of look like a full site.
The content brief was
was just a decoy,
The content brief was write 300 words about this topic.
Oh, wow. That was it. Wow. For looks than anything. Oh, that's
really
interesting.
So like that gives you an idea of like how deep we are on this, and like it's worked really well for us. And also when you like for people who do Amazon, they don't really realize that, but when you get off Amazon, you know how it works. A few offers are going to make you a lot of money, and a lot of offers are going to convert absolutely nothing, and you're going to make zero.
Right.
And so what happens is that when you make a content hub, you can kind of like reuse the same offer again and again. That works well. So you need to cross that with your revenue numbers, and it's like once an offer works, I don't even care about search volume anymore. I just want all the traffic I can get, whatever. And then very often you write for tiny keywords and you end up getting way more traffic than you thought. And because that offer, and then when you get volume on these offers, you can negotiate higher commissions. So it kind of like multiplies with each other. And so that's the other thing, because we don't really do like very Amazon-focused sites, it's quite important for us to stay focused on a few products, because you know how it works with private affiliate offers. You know?
Yep. No, that's very true. I can give a couple examples of that. You know, like, for example, Jungle Scout works really well on across niche pursuits. Whenever I'm talking about Amazon FBA, that's sort of like one of my pillars on nichepursuits.com. And just anytime I'm talking about Amazon FBA, like it's easy, even though like Jungle Scout isn't really part of the article, it's easy to just kind of add a paragraph or something because I know it converts really well across that entire category. And so it makes it really easy to monetize those types of posts.
And even small keywords are worth it for you, because you probably get a good commission from this, you know?
Right. Yep. Absolutely. So
I just want to add to that as well, like, because it often gets overlooked by internet marketers who you know don't like talking to people and stuff normally, is that once you have a lot of volume around a specific affiliate product, the negotiation part where you just ask for more money, ask for a higher percentage. Most affiliate managers out there have considerable leeway to grant you higher commissions. Some will try to incentivize you to do it. So, you know, stick us number one in your review post. Write these more articles. You don't have to do that. I'm not saying you should be like a tit for tat kind of thing. But the amount you can increase your revenue is so much higher than, you know, building out another category or, you know, building another 100 links or 50 articles or something, just because, you know, we've had cases where they would literally triple our commissions over like a 6-month period by just focusing so many people to that one offer. And that moves the needle quite significantly.
Yeah, no, that's a great point that people can try out. And, you know, are you guys completely off Amazon, right? Because you can't negotiate with Amazon, right? Like you can't.
No, you cannot.
Like there's, you know, Jeff controls the strings there, right? So there's an argument to be made, though, right, to promote private affiliate offers.
Sure. So just to clarify, though, we still use Amazon quite a lot. It's kind of if we don't have an offer, if there's not a specific thing we're going to promote, it's the everything else affiliate program, because it just has so many products. You sign up for it once and, you know, you can promote anything on there. Yep. So if we don't have another explicit program to promote, we'll still go with Amazon. And sometimes when we're starting a site, I mean, usually now we plan specific affiliate programs to join, but you often need to like grow your site a little bit and build it out before you can apply to some of these individual programs. So, you know, you can stick Amazon in there to start with at least. So.
Yep. That makes sense. So speaking of kind of your newer sites that you have now, you talked about the fact that you aren't publishing quite as much content, at least initially. You're going after sort of these core topics and focusing on those, trying to make those, every single one rank, try to make them a winner, right? So what do you have a target amount of content that you hope to publish on these new sites? Like, is it, hey, we're going to publish 50 articles and, you know, build links and see how it does, and that may be all.
Yeah. So initially we have that V1 concept, where it's like we kind of like index the site before, because you kind of want it to age anyway. So like once we have like 5-10 articles, we tend to index the site so that it just starts aging, but we don't really tell anyone. We just let Google know. But we kind of have like that consideration of like the site is launched properly, and usually the number will be between 40 and like 80, 90 pages usually. So it's still quite a bit of content, but it can take a while sometimes to do it properly. But yeah, we have that V1 concept. My idea is like, well, if I do these pages, and if I build 100 links to the site or something like that, like I set a goal as well, I expect that site to at least be break-even. That's kind of like, we're looking for the break-even point. When your site brings as much money as it costs, then you have the luxury of time to grow it, you know?
Yes.
And so it's kind of like the first goal of new sites is not like to make millions, is to pay for themselves and pay for the bills. And usually we hire a full-time writer or something for new sites these days. We tend to hire specialists these days, like like people who actually have experience in the field, etc. So it's not always the cheapest. So usually like the break-even point would be like $3,000 to $5,000 a month, I would say, for a site like that. That's the break-even. And usually that V1 plan is, okay, I think if we do that, we might reach break-even. But obviously, you know how this goes. It's hard to predict. So it's like it's a guesstimation. Let's just say that.
This process also allows you to identify potential superstar sites. So like that one that we saw that grew really fast. We didn't really intend or expect that to happen. It just happened to be a site that, as we started doing this and started building out the first 50 odd articles, we really got some great initial traction, and we thought, oh, we got to like put our weight behind this and really make it work. So
yeah, we found some unique keywords in this niche actually. Like the way we did it is I talk about this in one of our YouTube videos. The way we did it, I'm not going to say which niche, but I'm going to tell you how we got the keywords. We actually put the help section and knowledge base of the software tools in Ahrefs, and we found which problems people were looking for, and essentially created content around the problems people had, and promoted offers around that, and that worked.
Interesting.
That was one of the biggest factors of growth. So that's one thing. Another thing that works like that as well is you can put like really big sites. You can put Reddit, for example. You could put Reddit.com on Ahrefs. And you type the name of products in your niche. You type the name, like keywords related to your niche, but like more niche ones, you know. Mm-hmm. And then you will find like weird questions. If Reddit ranks, it's like it usually is not that competitive. Like nobody's building links to it, nobody's optimizing for it. And if you find like pages in your niche with a lot of traffic, and kind of like an angle to monetize it, like essentially solving the problem while selling a product, that's usually like a good low-hanging fruit for new sites as well.
So let's talk a little bit more about link building. I think, when people think authority hacker, one of the big things is link building that you guys teach. You talked about the Shotgun Skyscraper technique that you've sort of coined that phrase at least. So let's
as well.
Is it? Okay. Nice.
It was a defense mechanism. Someone else has a similar trademark, so we didn't want to.
We also went to take a photo of Mark with a shotgun for the sales page.
That would certainly attract a certain crowd, right? That would be great.
Definitely.
So either explain the Shotgun Skyscraper technique, or if you're doing anything slightly different with your new sites, these 3 new sites that you talked about, explain sort of your link building strategy now.
Okay. So Shotgun Skyscraper is a play on the skyscraper technique, which was, I think, originally coined by Brian Dean. So you have an article, a very high value article, which hopefully is targeted towards a keyword with very high Ahrefs keyword difficulty. KD is a direct measurement of the number of external links the top 10 results have pointing towards it. So normally when you're trying to rank an article, you look for low, medium competition keywords because you think it'd be easier. Well, we don't actually care about ranking these articles. We care about getting lots of links. So we look for a high KD keyword. That means that the articles already ranking have lots of links. We build a better article than that. And that is really important. It's not just, tell your writer to copy the number 1 ranking article in this for this keyword. Right. You have to actually put a lot of thought into making it good and making it legitimately better. This is a really important point, especially nowadays, because lots of people doing this technique. So if you do that, and if you do that well, then you craft an outreach campaign where you start contacting everybody who is linking to all of these people who are ranking for this keyword. And you have to apply a little bit of common sense and logic and filter out anything kind of unrelated. And there's a few cool techniques for doing this. But most of this work you can create into a process where you're downloading all the backlinks lists from Ahrefs, merging them all together, deduplicating them, filtering them out. You can even filter them by DR. So maybe you want to take a different approach for the very high DR sites that tend not to respond to these kind of mass outreach requests. So then once you have that prospect list, you need to find email addresses or contact information for all of them. There's a number of ways you can do that. Hunter.io is a paid tool. You can use it for free, but only I think 50 or 100 a month. So that's an approach. So we use Hunter quite a lot. There's also a bunch of other things you can do with like Scrapebox and like scraping people's Facebook page about pages, because loads of people have emails in there. And there's a few other techniques and stuff we use as well. And then we use a tool like Mailshake, or actually now Hunter.io has a free outreach tool. I think it's called Hunter Campaigns. So we've started using that as well. And then you create a semi-personalized template. You want to like pull in fields, first name, and anything else that you can do to personalize it. The more personalization, the better. You outreach a bunch of people and you say, hey, essentially what you're saying is you link to these people, link to me as well. Now you have to be a bit nicer about it and not sound like you're just
that's
going,
how I say it
for the link. Yeah. So, but the key with this strategy is you can do a lot of outreach. Some people think, well, that's kind of spammy, or you're annoying people. I wouldn't respond to those queries, and I wouldn't respond to those queries. I don't respond to those queries. But the fact is, a lot of people do, and some people will ask you for money. If you're okay with paying money for links, you can do that. We don't. We've never paid for links in that sense on any of our websites. And so, yeah, that's essentially the technique. I would say as well that how that technique is won is in negotiation, in the conversations you have when someone responds, not in the filtering or not in the outreach message. Yeah. It's in that negotiation, because if you have someone really good responding to those emails and really connecting with people, you get so many more links. So
right. I can suspect and know from previous emails either that I've gotten or sent that certain people, I think as you're sort of insinuating here, certain people might own a whole portfolio of sites, right? Like you found one of their sites, they might have an even better site, right? And they connect with you. Maybe talk about some of that negotiation that happens. Like what's sort of a best case scenario of an email you send out? What's better than just getting a link to the article you wanted anyways?
So as you said, getting multiple links or building a relationship so you can basically get a guest post or ask for a link from them for any future website or any other page you want to push. Having one link to your domain from a target is good, but being able to push 5 money keyword pages that you want to push, and your number 2 for you, or just the bottom of just at the top of page 2 for, and you want to get onto page 1. Those kind of relationships are really powerful. So again, one of the good things to do when you're doing negotiations is just track everything. So everyone you're talking to, everyone who you think you can get another link and re-outreach to, and just, I guess, really try and connect with them on a personal level. So like figure out what else they do on the internet. One of the best examples I had was I used to love my electronic music and was like wanted to be a DJ and all that back in the day. Someone like cyber stalked me and found my like an old SoundCloud page of mine, which had a bunch of like DJ mixes and stuff. And then I don't even think they liked that kind of music, but they're like, "Hey Mark, I found your SoundCloud page. I really like this. Have you heard this track from this new DJ?" And I listened to it. It was actually like a pretty cool track. And that's like one of the few times when I've actually given a link from Authority Hacker to someone. I actually paid attention to what they had to say. So
good to
anything. It's worked once, so it's not going to work again. So don't email me about that, guys. Anything like that helps you stand out and show that you've actually taken an interest and cared. I know it can seem a little fake when you're doing that, but just the fact that and I knew they were doing that to get the link, but the fact that they had gone to the effort of it, and to be honest, the track they recommended was actually kind of cool, made me listen to what their original pitch was. And their original pitch, although it looked very similar to most other link building outreach messages, the content they had was actually really good. And the link that they wanted us to, the site that they wanted to, the page that they wanted us to link to rather, was very relevant to what we were talking about. And yeah, it made sense from that perspective.
So is it possible to get a link to your SoundCloud page? We'll put that in the show notes so people can go check out your old music. So the outreach that you guys are doing, I mean, you've got a whole process set up. Are Mark and Gael actually doing all of that and monitoring the emails, or do you have VAs and everybody doing everything?
No, we used to do it ourselves initially before we figured out a lot of the systematized elements of it. And I think that's something really important. Whenever you start any new link building techniques, very important to do it yourself and just get a feel for how it actually works. Don't try and build the scaled version before you've built the basic rough around the edges version. But nowadays, I mean, we have people who work for us. We don't really go with the VA approach so much. We haven't been able to make that work with email outreach. Sometimes it's kind of okay for some of the prospecting elements of it. Anything to do with data analysis and working with Excel and Hunter and that stuff seems to be not so bad. But when it comes to crafting outreach messages or responding negotiation, any like cheap VA that we've worked with just hasn't had the finesse, I think, that's necessary to stand out from everyone else who's doing this kind of outreach. So we go with more higher paid full-time employees, and that's worked very well for us. It's taken a while, obviously, to train those people, and as we've done that, we've also improved our processes just bit by bit, adding on some automations or building a script or a macro or a tool which interfaces with some API and just speeds up certain parts of the process.
Now we actually have the staff that comes up with the improvements and works with developers to build tools, etc. So it's quite nice, actually. That's awesome. I haven't touched link building for a while, but I did the original Shotgun Skyscraper. It's like I just went off for 2 weeks and I had this idea and then came back to Mark like, look, I built all these links, and it's just and then that's how I started, basically.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, you're doing this wrong. Look at that. Look at this. This could be improved.
And then you fixed everything.
Right. Yeah.
Pretty much. That's usually how it goes,
how we work together.
That's the partnership. So. Yeah. Mark, Gail's the crazy idea person, and Mark, you're the let's button this up and make it done right.
Pretty much. And then I just go and do something else,
Yeah. That's good. I mean, you guys are a great team to be able to work together. How long have you guys been working together now?
It's over 10 years now. So
wow.
we before we started Authority Hacker, we had another business together. It was a digital marketing agency. And that was our first business, my first thing in entrepreneurship, really. And that was interesting. We talked about that a lot on our podcast in the early days, but we learned a lot from working with all these clients and doing a bunch of SEO and digital marketing, but we're not agency people. We don't have the patience, especially Gail doesn't have the patience to deal with clients and all the red tape. And it's just really nice, working for yourself, not having any red tape, if you have an idea, going and just implementing it without having to get approval from the web developer and the legal team and all these other people.
We work for some big sites, so there was a lot. At some point, we were doing link building for Macy's, for example.
Oh wow!
But every outreach template had to be approved by the social media manager, the lawyer, the head of SEO, then the assistant SEO. There was 5 or 6 people that had to approve the list of websites, the outreach emails, etc. I mean, we learned a lot doing this, but wow, that was hard. I think also big site SEO is so different from small site SEO. One time we had a task on updating title tags on Expedia, which you're like, okay, sounds easy, right? And they sent us this Excel file that was 300 megabits. And it was 100,000 pages. And they're like, well, we want this updated in 4 days. And we had to build a whole system on Mechanical Turk with editors that recheck everything, etc. So it was a whole, it's just not the same, basically. So it's it was interesting. We learned a lot. It made us creative, But
right.
But it's I wouldn't say it all translates to the stuff we do today.
So just to kind of tie it back into link building, to wrap up that Shotgun Skyscraper technique, I wanted to just clarify. You mentioned that you are writing the original article on a high KD term that maybe you're not trying to rank specifically for that term, right? You're building all the links to those pages, but then you're linking out, I assume, to all the other terms that you really want to rank for. Is that correct?
Well, even if you don't link out at all, even if you just have a ton of links pointing to that one page, it increases your overall domain authority. And as much as people say, Google works at page level and stuff, like we've seen it firsthand. You have 100 links pointing towards one page, and that page has no links pointing, except from maybe the menu and stuff, no links pointing anywhere else on your site. It still increases like not like the Ahrefs domain authority, but like the genuine underlying Google domain authority. And seems when you do that a lot, that you can just create new content, and if it's targeting lower medium competition keywords, it ranks like within hours or days. But then if you do go and get smart about it and use, Link Whisper or any of these other amazing tools out there to build internal links, then from that page to other pages on your site, especially money keywords where you're like a page where you're going to make a lot of money, like pushing an affiliate review or something, then that can be even more powerful.
Yeah, I want to point out to a mistake people may make when they do internal linking, though. It's like they put as many internal links as they can on that page that has a lot of links. But the way PageRank works for Google is essentially the PageRank is divided by the number of links that comes out, right? And it's like not all pages are making you the same money. Some pages making you very little money, while some pages are like very important to most of the money you make that month. So I think one thing that people never think about is deleting internal links to pages that don't perform that well anymore, or like stuff that has changed, etc., and focusing on just the few internal links that really move the needle in terms of income. I think it's really powerful, especially when sites get a little bit older. You've been working on a site for 2 or 3 years. You've been doing internal linking every time you publish a new page, etc. And then you have your old articles that have literally like internal links everywhere. Mm-hmm. And well, it's kind of like diluted. And you can kind of like reboost that by removing the links to the pages that don't matter as much to you anymore, which happens. There's always a cycle with like this page used to make a lot of money, but not so much anymore. Now this new one makes money, etc. So I think it's important to kind of like revise that, like, twice a year or something, like have that kind of like spring cleaning of your website.
Yeah.
Helps quite a bit.
Yeah, I think that's a great tip. I know a great tool called Link Whisper that gives full internal linking reporting if people want to, do some spring cleaning on their site.
And there's a free version. They can check it out. They can try it for free even. So
that is true. So any final thoughts on SEO? I mean, recently we've seen a lot of changes, maybe not changes, but SEO is always changing, I guess. But what I'm referring to is we've seen some things like GPT-3 and other advanced, sort of writing, natural language processing, artificial intelligence. And people are scared that, hey, all of a sudden we're going to have robots writing articles. And, if they can just crank out 1,000 great articles, like, how do we humans stand a chance? I'm just curious your thoughts on kind of the future of content and SEO. It doesn't specifically need to be, sort of this GPT-3, but just any forward-looking thoughts on content and SEO.
I think the mistake a lot of people make when trying to look ahead into the future is they compare now to some distant point where like all these changes have manifested, and like, okay, to go from here to here, it's like a cliff edge. Suddenly every writer is going to be out of a job and the machines are taking over, Skynet, right. Oh my God. But actually that process might happen over, maybe 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, however long it is. It's going to happen, but it's going to be gradual. So you have GPT-3 at the moment, which I haven't actually used it, but as I understand, you can basically ask it to write an article and it will, uses some kind of AI to
you need to write the first few sentences.
Somewhat okay article. So you could in theory use that to replace a bunch of writers, but the content wouldn't be legible. But you could perhaps have your writers use that in certain subsections of their writing. So maybe they're writing a review article, which includes an FAQ section with a bunch of questions, which is each maybe 2 or 3 paragraphs long. And you could ask GPT-3 to help out in that sense. So in a way, you can think of it rather than a replacement to your writers, a way to augment them or potentially augment them in some situations. And then as technology improves more, then it may be able to do other things and eventually create whole readable articles that are passable in the sense that you wouldn't know, it would pass the Turing test or whatever, you wouldn't know whether it's a computer written or not. as you said, SEO, link building, content, all this stuff, it's changing so fast. If you when you started this, if you said, what's SEO going to look like in 2020, and you think to what it looks like now, it's probably quite different than the direction that you thought it was going. I know for sure it's very different to the way we thought it was going. So I would just say to people, like, just try and adapt as much as you can. Don't freak out about these kind of Skynet situations.
Right.
And it's probably not going to be as bad as you think.
Right. Yep, I agree. I mean, bottom line is that I think humans are always going to want to connect with humans, right? And so there's always this advantage of, if you can truly write in a way that connects. Like we're years away from where, I
think there will be people that want to read content by humans and not content by robots as well. Like, there will be people who will be like, nah, I don't want to read any of this robot shit. I want someone who wrote it, etc. Like,
there'll be like an ad block plus that blocks out robot articles.
There you go.
That kind of,
or like a seal, like certified written by human seal, right? Like, anyways,
there's content,
It's also like more and more people starting to consume content on video now that 4G is much more prevalent. Data, everyone has a cell phone, a smartphone these days. It's much easier to create videos than it was 10 years ago. So, that's another element to it. I think people like connecting with the author, not just reading a bunch of text to get their information. So.
To be honest, for me, the more immediate change to the internet is more like a lot of content is hosted on third-party platforms versus on your website. Like, for example, you remove the comments from Niche Pursuits. Why? Because your comments are now on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, etc.
That's true.
Essentially, you've moved that content from your website to there. So I think like that's more like you're gonna have your brand exist on these third-party platforms, and maybe the way people will touch your website will be a little bit later to like get a deeper version of your post, maybe join an email list, maybe like, this kind of like deeper connection.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it might be tricky for things like ad-based websites. Like, it's like the number of page views you can generate your site will be a little bit harder because more of the internet traffic will be directed to Facebook, YouTube, etc. But you can, like, for example, YouTube, you get money from AdSense, you still get all of that, etc. You can still monetize, but you'll still be able to, like, I think that's why I tend to like projects where you can eventually sell your own products as well, even if you don't have to do it now. Like, like it's kind of like the attitude we're taking towards our new sites right now, which is like, we don't try to make it very complicated. We just want to get a lot done. But we want to see that perspective that we can take them to a place where we could even have our own shop or products or whatever. And then you could actually export that brand to YouTube, to Facebook, to all that. And you don't care that much because eventually you just drive people to do the final purchase on your website. And then, the thing as well is like these platforms are more than happy to give you impressions when people stay on their platform versus when they click towards your website. So when you have that kind of business model, you tend to have much more traffic opportunities as well. So, but you don't have to do it now. Like, it's still good. I mean, like, SEO is still amazing, etc. It's like people are making a ton of money with AdStrive still, and people are still doing really well with affiliate and all of that, etc. But I just like the perspective. I like the idea of like, what? If anything, I know I can turn this around. It's a flexible niche where I can actually go and do these things. And that's kind of like the way you future-proof things, because then you can just turn your traffic around and monetize it still in a bit of a different way.
Yep, I 100% agree. So speaking of video and YouTube that you mentioned, you guys are making a little bit more effort, it seems like, on your YouTube channel with Authority Hacker. Over there, you've got the nice setup that we talked about a little bit before, right? You invested a lot of money in the microphones and the setup and the video equipment. How's YouTube going for you guys?
It's going okay. I mean, it started grow. We've started like hitting that compounding phase. So like the numbers are actually going up kind of in a more meaningful way. I think what was interesting is with our approach is we had this podcast for several years before, which was just audio. And we're like, let's do video and let's make that our YouTube channel. And most of the videos on our YouTube channel are podcast, like an hour or so long. It's not the usual YouTube algorithm built videos, 10 minutes or so, clickbaity titles, that although we do a few clickbaity titles now. But I think because we had that flip from the audio to the video version, it took a while for us to really understand what was working on YouTube. We were taking the same approach with audio podcasts, and that wasn't really resonating, at least in the YouTube algorithm recommendations engine and all that. But now we started looking at the data and which podcasts working better on YouTube. And then we're adjusting future topics and angles and little bits in our presentation, how we do it. So those iterations have started to stack up more and more. We start doing better B-roll and animations and all sorts of stuff on top of the video version of the podcast now as well. So it's going. I think if you ask us the same question in a year's time, it'd be very interesting to see how far it's gone, because it's a channel we're getting a lot of value from at the moment, and we really want to push further. It's also quite enjoyable, I think, to make videos versus just sitting behind a blank screen.
Yeah, I think if you start a podcast and you don't do it on YouTube these days, you're crazy. It's actually the audio podcast space is so competitive. I'm sure if you look at your download numbers, it's a flat line, and you look year over year and you might have a slight increase, but people don't discover audio podcasts. They just follow them based on the people they like. Whereas YouTube is that recommendation engine, etc. It's kind of that enters the realm of repurposing content, doing things for multiple things. Then you can take clips and put them on Instagram, do these things, etc. And it's but I enjoy YouTube personally. It's you know why? I enjoy YouTube because Google forces their freaking search intent on every query now. So you can't even make cool stuff. You just need to make what they want.
Right.
And it's very often trash. I hate, I don't like creating content that matches, on Authority Hacker, I hate that. Because it's usually terrible content.
I agree.
And it doesn't work. And if you do it, it's just terrible. But because everyone writes about this, then Google assumes that's the truth. And if you write something else, you don't rank, And so on YouTube, it's engagement-based, which means we get to say what we want. And then if people watch and etc., then we will get the distribution, which is a lot more enjoyable for us to do this than to actually go ahead and rewrite the same article 100th time on Google, which is essentially how Google works these days.
Yep. No, I'm sort of looking at it the same way. I've started to put a little more effort into my YouTube channel. Believe it or not, I was just looking yesterday. I've had my YouTube channel since 2010. But most of it has just been I did a quick demo of Longtail Pro and I threw it up there, right? I never actually cared what people looked at on YouTube. I just had it embedded on nichepursuits.com, right? The video.
We did that at the beginning too.
It was a hosting platform.
Video hosting.
Yeah, it was a hosting for me. But now I'm looking at it, and you mentioned something that with YouTube, you can do things that maybe are more interesting, that they are something that you just you feel like talking about or sharing, or here's a quick strategy. It's more interest based than just straight keyword based. Although the people go ahead.
It's what it used to be to be a blogger when bloggers
yes.
blog.
Yeah. Exactly. Which is what I miss, right? I can go over to Niche Pursuits and just write whatever I want. And sometimes I do that. But those articles usually don't perform that well, right?
Yeah. A year later, what's left? Nothing.
Exactly.
It's a ghost town.
Exactly. So,
and it's that's how Google works now. Now they want you to write utilitarian content that just answers the search intent of the query. But before, if you were doing something really cool and getting a lot of links, you could rank because you were doing really well in link metrics. Now, even if you have the link metrics, it doesn't matter. If Google wants a list post for that query and you don't have a list post, you're not going to show up. There's no chance, even if you have 10 times more links. And that's why YouTube is fun for me, because you still get the benefits of search, but it's actually search powered by interest and people's engagement, like Google used to be several years ago.
Yep. I agree. And then our audience knows we're humans, when they're looking at us on YouTube. So that helps, right? So that can't be taken over by a robot quite yet. Anyways, Mark, Gael, it's great having you on the podcast. Any final thoughts or just tips perhaps for somebody just getting started out? They're trying to build that, either their first site, they're trying to rank in Google. Any just final advice for them?
I would say that the one biggest thing you can do to differentiate yourself from other people is content quality. So that doesn't mean, I mean, even though Gael was saying like the intent of the search behind a keyword is like maybe there's a list post, so write a list post, but that doesn't mean just copy or rewrite someone else's list post. Like genuinely look for ways in which you can improve it and make it better, and improve the production quality. Like just try and be the best when it comes to content, and everything else gets much easier. Link building, especially when you do that.
Yeah, I can give a practical example. Like one thing that we've done for the past 2 years on our site to like enhance the quality is we've hired illustrators and we create custom illustrations for our content actually. And it's like when there's technical stuff, I mean, I'm thinking of one of our sites right now that we're working on, when there's like very technical things that people need to do, like we literally have the diagrams showing exactly how they need to do things and like little arrows pointing at it, etc. And it's like, it's kind of like, it works like a comic book almost, you have each step, etc. And like people can go through that. So that's an idea on how you can improve your production quality. So even though you have to match the search intent, it's just, you can still be creative, but it's quite constraining. But it's probably still the best traffic source to rank on Google. So you should not, despite what I said, you should not give that up. And you should definitely compete on that. And we do compete on that. It's just for Authority Hacker, because we've been doing online marketing for so long, we just enjoy just like sitting back and actually talking about more advanced things than just repeating what is a long tail keyword or something like this for the thousandth time, basically.
Yep. Great tips, great advice, guys. Like I said, it's great having you on the podcast and being able to see you on video. I know people can go to authorityhacker.com if they want to follow along with what you're doing, but is there any other place that you'd like to send people, or how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I mean, we have a go ahead. Yeah, so we have a podcast as well, authorityhacker.com/podcast, 230 something episodes up there now. It comes out every Monday. It's also on YouTube. Just search for Authority Hacker. We're on social medias, but we don't really post that much. We're not that great in it. We're more, like I say, podcast, blog, email type site. So follow us there.
The newsletter, we spend a lot of time on this lately, actually. Right? Like, so it's like, it's funny, like it started from the podcast. So we kind of like take a tangent from the podcast. We take like a subtopic or something we might just have brushed on or something, and we just like expand on this or like make real case studies. So like that's when we go and show screenshots of stuff. Basically, all the blogging that Google doesn't want anymore, we put it in the email.
Yes.
Think about it that way.
Yep. So there you go. People can head over to authorityhacker.com, check out those resources, join the email list or anything else. Guys, it's great to connect again. It's been 6 years since you were on the podcast. Let's maybe not wait another 6 years to do that again. But I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks very much for having us on, Spencer. Thank you.
Cheers.